Let's talk about cars, specifically the ones that are no longer being made in America. For decades, the U.S. auto industry has been a symbol of American strength and innovation, with assembly lines humming and workers clocking in every morning. But now, that legacy is facing its biggest threat in generations. In a stunning move, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Hyundai, and Kia have all announced they're pulling back U.S. operations. These aren't just any companies, they're some of the world's largest automakers, and their decision marks a turning point for American manufacturing. That's 38,000 jobs on the chopping block, hitting the Midwest hardest, places like Michigan, Ohio, Alabama, and Kentucky. For many, these jobs aren't just a paycheck, they're a lifeline passed down through generations. These factories aren't just workplaces, they're the backbone of entire communities. Local diners, schools, and small businesses all depend on the steady income from these plants. When a factory closes, the whole town feels it. The March announcement sent shockwaves through towns built around these plants. Families gathered around kitchen tables wondering what comes next, while local leaders scrambled to find answers. Why the exodus? One word: tariffs. These new trade barriers have upended the delicate balance of global supply chains, making it more expensive to build cars in the U.S. than ever before. Aggressive new tariffs from the Trump administration have made building cars in America a losing game. Automakers say they simply can't absorb the extra costs and stay competitive. The policy, meant to protect jobs, is now destroying them at record speed. Instead of boosting American industry, it's forcing companies to look elsewhere, and workers are paying the price. For workers, this isn't a debate about trade, it's a crisis threatening their homes and families. Mortgage payments, college plans, and retirement dreams are suddenly at risk. The ripple effects will hit everything from car prices to the broader U.S. economy. Expect to see fewer new cars on the road, higher prices at dealerships, and uncertainty for anyone connected to the auto industry. So how did we get here? Let's break it down. The story of the Great American Car Crash of 2025 is about more than just cars. It's about the future of work, the fate of communities, and the choices that shape our economy. The trouble started in January 2025, when the Trump administration shocked the global auto industry by slapping a 25% tariff on imported vehicles. The announcement sent ripples through boardrooms and assembly lines alike, as automakers scrambled to understand the full impact of the new policy. But it didn't stop there. A 20% tariff was also imposed on imported auto parts, hitting the very heart of car manufacturing in America. Suddenly, every bolt, chip, and sensor sourced from abroad became dramatically more expensive. Modern cars are marvels of global engineering, relying on thousands of components sourced from dozens of countries. A 20% tax on parts isn't just a line on a spreadsheet, it's a direct hit to every car made here, raising costs for manufacturers and ultimately for consumers. Then in March, the administration doubled down. A sweeping 25% tariff on all non-US made cars landed, compounding the pain for both foreign and domestic automakers. The message was clear: build in America, or pay the price. Automakers were squeezed from both sides. Building cars in the US got pricier as parts costs soared, while importing finished vehicles became nearly impossible for many brands. The entire supply chain was thrown into disarray. For companies that relied on global logistics, the new tariffs made it nearly impossible to keep up with demand or maintain competitive pricing. Importing finished cars, once a routine part of business, now came with a punishing price tag. The administration didn't stop there. Using emergency powers, it rolled out country-specific tariffs as high as 50%, targeting nations seen as economic rivals. The auto industry, already reeling, was forced to navigate a patchwork of unpredictable new rules. The result? Total chaos for companies trying to plan ahead. Supply contracts were thrown into question, and stock markets reacted with wild swings as investors tried to make sense of the new landscape. Legal challenges are already underway, with automakers and trade groups filing lawsuits to block the tariffs. But court cases take time, and the industry can't afford to wait for a verdict. Decisions have to be made now, with billions of dollars on the line. The U.S. market, once a stable and predictable environment for car makers, has become a minefield of unpredictable costs and shifting regulations. Dealerships are seeing empty lots and sticker prices that climb higher every week. For global car makers, the rules keep changing, and the risks keep rising. What was once a carefully balanced international operation is now a daily gamble, with every new policy threatening to upend years of planning. It's like playing chess on a board that rearranges itself every day. Strategies that worked yesterday are obsolete by morning, and no one knows what the next move will bring. The industry is left with no good options. Some companies are pausing production, others are considering moving operations overseas, and a few are even shutting down plants entirely. The cost of doing business in America has become unsustainable for many. Factories that once hummed with activity now sit idle, and office lights are going dark as layoffs begin. And so the exits begin. As the storm of surcharges rages on, the future of the American auto industry hangs in the balance, with no clear end in sight. The automakers' response was swift and blunt. Within days of the announcement, boardrooms were buzzing with urgent meetings and crisis calls. Executives who had spent years building up their U.S. operations suddenly found themselves facing a new reality, one where the numbers simply didn't add up anymore. The new tariffs made U.S. manufacturing unworkable. Costs soared overnight, and the careful calculations that once justified billion-dollar investments were wiped out in an instant. Toyota, which sold nearly 2 million cars here last year, said the cost increases left them no choice but to scale back. The company had invested heavily in American jobs and infrastructure, but now, every car rolling off the line came with a price tag that threatened their competitiveness. Honda called continued investment unsustainable. Their leadership, once optimistic about long-term growth in the U.S., now faced the grim prospect of layoffs and plant closures. For decades, these companies built massive factories, hired tens of thousands, and created local supply chains. They became pillars of their communities, supporting not just workers but entire towns. Now, the rules have changed overnight, and their business model is shattered. The investments that once seemed like a safe bet have turned into liabilities. They're not leaving by choice, they're being forced out by policy. Workers and managers alike are left wondering what comes next as uncertainty ripples through the industry. The uncertainty is the final straw. No company can plan for the future when the rules shift on a whim. Strategic planning becomes impossible, and confidence in the market evaporates. Investing billions in U.S. plants no longer makes sense. Projects are paused, expansions are canceled, and the ripple effects are felt by suppliers and local businesses. The risk of even harsher tariffs looms over every decision. Companies fear that today's challenges could become tomorrow's disasters if the policy climate worsens. Why stay in a market that's become hostile to your business? The sense of opportunity that once drew automakers to the U.S. has been replaced by anxiety and doubt. The answer is clear: they won't. Both Toyota and Honda have made it known, unless the environment changes, their future investments will go elsewhere. They're cutting their losses and moving to more predictable markets. Other countries are eager to welcome their factories, jobs, and expertise. Decades of investment and millions of customers abandoned overnight. The impact will be felt far beyond the factory gates, reshaping communities and the industry for years to come. Behind every lost job is a family facing an uncertain future. 38,000 layoffs will devastate communities, especially in Detroit and the Midwest. These aren't just jobs, they're the foundation of middle-class life. The closures ripple out, hitting suppliers, truckers, and local businesses. Detroit's fragile recovery is now at risk, with city leaders warning of a new economic crisis. Public services will suffer as tax bases shrink. Workers who built their lives around these factories are now collateral damage in a trade war. The promise to protect American jobs has turned into a wave of pink slips. The numbers are staggering. Asian automakers made nearly 30% of all U.S. cars. Their exit leaves a massive hole in American manufacturing. These aren't niche brands. They're the top sellers, with Toyota alone moving nearly 2 million vehicles last year. Fewer cars mean higher prices, basic supply and demand. The Center for Automotive Research estimates a $12 billion economic hit, factoring in lost jobs, suppliers, and tax revenue. This isn't just an auto industry problem, it's a blow to the entire U.S. economy. Stock prices for these companies tanked after the tariff news, wiping out billions in value. Analysts predict car prices could jump by $10,000, putting new vehicles out of reach for many families. The fallout is immediate and far-reaching. The American dream of affordable, reliable cars is slipping away, and the pain is just beginning. Politicians are split. The Trump administration defends the tariffs as tough medicine to bring back jobs and punish unfair trade. They claim the pain is temporary, and automakers will eventually return. Local leaders and unions see it differently. They call the policy reckless, blaming it for permanent job losses and community decline. Critics argue these companies were already major U.S. employers, supporting vast supply chains. The tariffs didn't punish foreign factories, they punished American workers. The gap between political rhetoric and reality has never been wider. The administration says automakers should just move all production to the U.S., but that's a fantasy. Building a car factory takes years and billions of dollars. Modern cars use parts from all over the world. Untangling that supply chain is impossible overnight. Even if companies tried, the costs would skyrocket and consumers would pay the price. The tariffs already make U.S. production expensive. Forcing a total relocation would make it worse. Automakers aren't being stubborn, they're being rational. The numbers don't add up and the market is too risky. Economic reality always wins. So what's next? The immediate future is bleak lost jobs, higher prices, and wounded communities. Empty factories may become permanent scars unless new investment arrives. Legal battles and international talks might change the landscape, but for many workers, help will come too late. Trust between global companies and the U.S. government is shattered. This is a harsh lesson in how interconnected and fragile the global economy really is. The promise to protect American jobs has backfired spectacularly. The fallout from this car crash is far from over.